Hello, my wonderful, amazing, beautiful fourth graders. How are we doing today? We are on lesson 16. So we're actually comparing all three of the stories that we have read so far. And when I say comparing, I mean we're actually just kind of going back through them and looking at things for some text evidence, as we can see in our learning intentions. So today we are learning to use details and examples so we can explain our understanding of the text. And we know we are successful when we can use evidence and details from the text to support our understanding of the text. I know I said the word text a lot. And tell where the text evidence can be found. Okay? So with that, we will go ahead and get started with our foundational skills. So today we are working on compound words. So we have the word toothbrush. Toothbrush. Let me get my little pointer here. So toothbrush is a compound word because it's made up of two smaller words, the word tooth and the word brush. You've probably heard of compound words before, so if you have, this is a great review, and if you haven't, you're learning something new. So toothbrush is a compound word because it's made up of the two smaller words, tooth and brush. So as you can see here, a compound word is made up of two smaller words joined together. So we have bedroom, so it's made up of the word bed and then the word room. Then we have lighthouse, which is light and house. Sailboat, sail and boat, and then spaceship, space, and ship. Okay, so those are some of our compound words. They're just made up of two smaller words. And that can make it a lot easier when you're coming up to a word that you don't know. If you recognize that it's a compound word and you know those two smaller words, well, you just put them together and now you have a compound word and you can read the big word. So if you know the word tooth and you know the word brush, then you can read the word toothbrush. Simple. So an activity that you can work on later on your own is actually matching all of these compound words to their definitions, okay? So that is something that we're not going to take a lot of time on right now, but something you can work on later, matching these compound words to their definitions up above. So I told you today that we're really going to be focusing on using text evidence, and we're actually going to end up looking at all three of the stories that we read so far. So the first story that we're looking at is we're going to go back to the first story that we read, which was Porpoises in Peril, one of my favorites. I've said that before, I know. So we're going to reread pages 36 through 39 of Porpoises in Peril. Now our question is, what evidence does the science squad have so far that suggests Drake Darkley is responsible for harming the porpoises? Remember, Drake Darkley. Dun, dun, dun. Not a good guy. So let's start by rereading pages 36 through 39. That would make sense, said Reggie, and the mining information fits with my water analysis. I found ocean bed sediment in water hundreds of feet above the seabed, which would fit with mining activity. That would certainly explain where all the fish have gone. And look at these pictures, Kate said, showing the team the pictures of the structure she'd seen while diving. I know it's fuzzy, but it's from an area where the barge lost power. I bet it's mining equipment. Come to think of it, Cam and I heard an interesting story when we ate at the crab shack, Jada said. Interesting, Cam said. I think it was more like someone was yanking your chain. For years, Jada began, ignoring Cam, a lady in the town told a story to anyone who would listen. It was about an underwater mine worth billions, not millions, billions. The mine was supposed to be full of precious opals, but she never had anything to show for it. Not one single opal. Then she just disappeared. The team listened intently as Jada continued. And we also got a tip about the bright lights on the water, more recently, late at night. The crab shack owner had seen the lights a couple of times when he was locking up for the night. Well, it sounds like we've got our guy, Cam said. Drake Darkley, illegal jewel miner and ocean polluter. But what now? Now we prove it, said Kate, gathering her things. On the way out of the inn, Cam made a phone call to Dr. Bloodman and told him that if Drake Darkley were involved in illegal underwater mining, he would be breaking enough local, national, and global environmental regulations to keep himself locked away for a long, long time. He was also facing a hefty fine. Cam told him that the science squad's plan, and Dr. Bloodman promised to relay the information to the local police. So, back to that first question. What evidence does the science squad have that suggests Drake Darkley is responsible for harming the porpoises? Stop and think about it. Okay, did you think about it? If your answer is no, then stop and think. No, really. Okay, so let's talk evidence. So since our focus today is text evidence, let's even look specifically at the text. So let's see here. It says, and look at these pictures, Kate said, showing the team the pictures of the structure she'd seen while diving. I know it's fuzzy, but it's from the area where the barge was supposed to be. I bet that's the mining equipment. So there's evidence right there. They have a picture of what they think is this mining equipment. Okay? They also have this evidence here. They found ocean bed sediment and water hundreds of feet above the seabed, which would fit with mining activity. Dun, dun, dun. So once again, text evidence. So I can say on page 36 in the first paragraph, it says that they found ocean bed sediment in the water hundreds of feet above the seabed, which fits with mining equipment. Now you see how I noted what page number and what paragraph I found it on. Now remember, the paragraph is each time the first line is kind of scooted in like that, that's a new paragraph. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 new paragraphs on this page. Okay, let's look for more evidence that proves that Drake Darkley is guilty. Let's see. For years, a lady in the town told the story to anyone who would listen about an underwater mine worth billions. Okay, so then they have a story from someone saying that there is an underwater mine. Now, granted, it's just a story. There's not a lot of proof, but we could say on page 37, Jada talks about a lady who thinks that there's an underwater mine. So there's someone in the town that does think that. Let's see. Oh, and then the bright lights on the water. So we can say on page 38 in the first paragraph, because notice I'm in this first little section here where the line's pushed in. And we also got the tip about the bright lights on the water more recently late at night. So we can say the crab on page 38 in the first paragraph, it says that the crab shack owner has been seeing bright lights on the water late at night. Okay, and then lastly, we can say that they have called Dr. Bledman and given him their hypothesis that Drake Darkley is guilty. So see, all of those little pieces we can put together as like a case to show that Drake Darkley is our guilty suspect. Okay? So the second question that we have is, reread the second paragraph on page 14 of Mary Anning, the girl who cracked open the world. And what is the main idea of this paragraph? Okay, so on the next slide, we are going to look at page 14. Okay, and then specifically it says the second paragraph. So I always want you to think about when it's giving you this, it's telling you exactly where to read. You don't have to reread the whole thing. Okay, so when a question gives you, it's like giving you directions. Reread the second paragraph on page 14 of Mary Anning, the girl who cracked open the world. That's giving you the direction, what to do first. And then we can answer the question, what is the main idea of the paragraph? Okay, so let's look at the second paragraph first. So I've already put page 14 here for us. If, I wasn't here controlling the pages, you could open up your book to page 14 to be able to look at the second paragraph. Now, the second paragraph. Now remember, every time it's a new paragraph is when the line is scooted in. Actually, we'll go this way. Okay, so here from the left, I see this line is kind of scooted in because it starts a little bit over the they. And then this line is scooted in, and then this line is scooted in, and this line is scooted in. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. The question asks me to reread the second paragraph only. So I only need to reread this paragraph, this section right here. I don't have to read the whole page. So it says, the ichthyosaur was put on display so everyone could see it. When people asked who found this creature, sometimes Mary's name was mentioned, but most of the time no one talked about Mary. The men who studied the creature named it were mentioned instead. They were scientists. They were experts. Mary was just a poor girl without much education who was lucky to find the creature. What did she know? So back to our question, what is the main idea of the paragraph? Let's think. So it says a lot that the ichthyosaur, was put on display for everyone to see. Okay. When people asked who found this creature, sometimes Mary's name was mentioned, but most of the time no one talked about Mary. Okay, so no one's talking about Mary. The men who studied the creature and named it were mentioned instead. Okay, so that's more about how Mary's not being mentioned. They were scientists. They were experts. Mary was just a poor girl without much education who was lucky to find the creature. What did she know? It says. So, what do you guys think? What is it mainly talking about? I agree. It's talking about they're not giving her any credit. So we could say the main idea of this paragraph is Mary is not being given credit for finding the ichthyosaur. Oop, there we go. And then what is one piece of evidence that the author uses to support this idea? So again, if we think back, it said Mary's name wasn't mentioned when people talked about it. They mentioned the names of the scientists who studied it. So our evidence would be, so it says our main idea, Mary isn't being given the credit that she deserves for finding the ichthyosaur. We know this because on page 14, it said that Mary's name mostly wasn't mentioned when people asked about the ichthyosaur. They only mentioned the names of the scientists who studied it. So you see how I'm supporting this with text evidence. And again, I will show you in the text right here. It says, the men who studied the creature and named it were mentioned instead of Mary. Okay, so that's my evidence that's showing that Mary wasn't getting the credit she deserved. So you see how I went back in the text and used that to support my answer? That's exactly what I want you to do on your reading response question today. So your reading response question is that you're going to reread the final paragraph on page 9. And I went ahead and did you a favor, and I only included that last paragraph for you. So you don't even have to look to figure out which one is the last paragraph this time. And again, what is the main point the writer is trying to make in this paragraph? Okay, so basically, like, what's the main thing that they're trying to say to you? And then in this bottom section, I want you to put your evidence that the writer or the author uses to support this point. So notice that this time we said the writer instead of the author, okay? That really means the same thing. So as a reader and we'll just say as a reader, because the word is not coming to me, you have to understand that when it says the author or the writer, that means about the same thing. So when you're tackling these questions, you know, if it says the writer, it means the author. And if it says the author, it still means the writer because the author does write. Okay? So, and again, I have included just that last paragraph for you so that way you can read it on your own. You can pause the video now or do it later. I have this on Seesaw. But this is your reading response question of the day. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will see you all in the next video. See you later.